Where we're seeing the highest amounts of motor vehicle deaths.
And the outcome of that mind virus is very clear if you walk around the streets of downtown San Francisco.
Crumbling cities across the country due to weak and terrible policy. Also, here's what happens when you let people come in who don't share the same cultural ideals as the country that they are infiltrating. And refugee camps, are they a bad thing? Are they a good thing? Well, it depends on who is, I don't know, forcing them to leave. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Ooh, live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is November 2nd, Thursday, the year of our Lord 2023. So glad you could join us. And, you know, I hate to make y'all angry this early in the morning, and then just in general. Well, I guess it's early if you're on the West Coast. It's not so early if you're on the East Coast. But just in general, I hate to start this off on an angering note, but we're going to. I don't know if you've seen this video making the rounds. This is from Halloween. I know we still have a little bit of a Halloween hangover, but it's a video that's been making the rounds. A lot of people have played it. A lot of people have commented on it, and I think it is fascinating, and I think should be used more often to make a point that the way that culture operates has an effect on the decency of that culture. And I realize that that's a somewhat redundant thing to say, but I wanted to play this video. That's what I'm getting at. This video is a door camera, like a Ring doorbell camera or whatever, on Halloween, where somebody who wasn't home, had something else to do, put a camera out, put a bucket, a bowl of candy out on their porch, and she said, "Hey, come take one. Should be good." That nicety portrayed by the homeowner there was taken full advantage of by a bunch of people. And, well, we'll just play the video and we'll discuss from there. Check it out. They're cleaning it dry. Because that's how we do things now. This has absolutely nothing to do with, and here's the thing, is a lot of people are going to jump to this, the other thing. This absolutely has nothing to do with the race these people were, the country they came from, or the language that they're speaking. It strictly has to do with a culture that they abide by and a culture that the West abides by. Without getting into this bigger conversation of the collapse of Western values, I think the biggest point to make in situations like this, where people take advantage of the generosity of others, it should be used as a case for the opposition of socialism. I realize, again, I'm using the double negatives. There isn't a better case against socialistic tendencies and socialism ideas than something like this. And the reason for that is this. Do I think that's a terrible thing that these people are doing, especially when you put it in the context of, well, no other kid dressed in a costume. There's parents here. No other kid dressed in a costume is going to be able to get candy from that house. One, they're exploiting the generosity of the homeowner that put out the candy. Two, they're stealing the opportunity from the candy takers of the other kids that are going to come through and probably would have just taken one, or the kids prior that just took one. But here's the thing. While I think that this is just dumb, there's been really aggressive terminology. People are like, this is disgusting. You know, like, yeah, I don't disagree with that, but it's just stupid and idiotic. Instead of entirely lambasting the people here, I would like to use this to make a point. My point is that the more handouts that come from the government, and I hate to be like, oh, socialism, the more socialistic tendencies that make headway in the policies of the United States of America, this country, the more the rest of us are going to act like that. Right now, I think the majority of Americans would look at this video and go, what a bunch of losers. However, if the entire system continues to trend towards handouts, freebies, more people are going to trend toward this. And I'll use myself as an example. If this is the only candy on the block, and candy's not the best example because I don't particularly want candy, but if there are resources, and there's a limited amount of resources because of a lot of reasons. There's always a limited amount of resources. That's what makes the economy go. But if there's a limited amount of resources and it comes to individuals and family groups and units using up those resources, I'm not going to sit back and watch stuff like this happen and go, look at those darn fools there exploiting the system. No, I'm going to exploit the system also. Because the way I see it is there's a finite amount of resources that need to be used. And in a more socialized system, those finite resources are going to get exploited and abused by people. Case in point, this stuff happens all the time. And so if I know that the limited amount of resources in this socialized system that we're trending towards, if the resources are going to be exploited by other people, which then would leave me with less access to those resources, I'm not going to sit on my high horse and go, well, at least we're better than them. No, I'm going to go get it too. I'm going to exploit the system better than the people that are going to exploit it out of malice. Maybe you'd say that I'm exploiting it out of malice. But the point I'm trying to make is the more you trend down a equity and social whatever, socialism trajectory in the country, the more you're going to get people who justifiably think that this is wrong doing this thing. And I wouldn't blame them for it. I wouldn't blame myself. If we're going to compete with people who are going to exploit a system, I am also going to exploit that system to make sure that myself and my family have enough of the resources that are in limited quantity. I don't know if a lot of people were making a more broad strokes anti-socialism argument with this video. I think they were just saying, look, you bring people in who don't have the same cultural values as you, and this is what you're going to get. But I would like to take it a step further and make the case that I just made. That if, again, resources are limited, people are going to exploit it, I'm going to exploit it too, and I don't think that's wrong. I think that is the capitalism of socialism. Fighting for the resources in any way, shape, or form that you can because you know that they're not unlimited. Anyways, there's my short little rant about that. I wonder, Dottie? Sorry if I mispronounced that. It says, I'm not. I was raised with morals. Yeah, I was too. But in a priority structure, you know, if feeding my family is at the top priority, and in order to do that, I have to exploit the resources that are limited because I know that other people are going to exploit it, and you have to get there first, you know, the morality of feeding my kids ranks higher than sitting on my high horse. So again, I'm not sure if that's what the comment was being made here, but I don't know. A lot of people saying shut the border down. I wouldn't disagree, but yeah, it's a policy. It's a cultural thing and a policy thing that we are losing quickly in this country. But enough on that. I want to get to more of this policy stuff because I think this is fascinating. This is just the erosion of Western values. I think is going to be kind of the biggest, broadest conversation, but also have the most real, tangible effects / outcomes, especially going forward. I want to play this because this is fascinating. Elon was on Joe Rogan talking about buying Twitter, and he used a really interesting. Well, what he said was not. I'm just going to play it. Why would I categorize or characterize what he's going to say before he says it? So watch this clip. This is fascinating, and it kind of is in line with this whole idea of policies and value systems and all this sort of stuff, and how bad ideas are disseminating themselves across the country. Check this out. This is Elon on Joe Rogan talking about why he bought Twitter.
I mean, this is going to sound somewhat melodramatic, but I was worried about that it was having a corrosive effect on civilization. That it was just having a bad impact. It's where it was located, which is downtown San Francisco. And while I think San Francisco is a beautiful city, and we should really fight hard to kind of right the ship of San Francisco, if you've walked around downtown San Francisco, right near the ex-FKA Twitter headquarters, it's a zombie apocalypse. I mean, it's rough. Have you been in that area?
Not lately. No.
Yeah.
I've heard.
It's crazy.
I've heard it's crazy. I've heard you really can't believe it until you actually go there.
You can't believe it until you go there. So now you have to say, well, what philosophy led to that outcome? And that philosophy was being piped to Earth. A philosophy that would be ordinarily quite niche and geographically constrained, so that the fallout area would be limited, was effectively given an information weapon, information technology weapon to propagate what is essentially a mind virus to the rest of Earth. And the outcome of that mind virus is very clear if you walk around the streets of downtown San Francisco. It is the end of civilization.
And it's not just propagating the mind virus, but suppressing any opposing viewpoints.
Yes. Well, in order for the virus to propagate, it must suppress opposing viewpoints. So,
because it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
Correct.
Dang. See, that's way more profound than I thought. When he bought Twitter, you kind of would have thought there was this broader, I believe in free speech, this and that and the other thing. But he sits there and says, well, look, Twitter's headquartered in San Francisco. In San Francisco, the ideas and the ideology and the policies that have been implemented in San Francisco are terrible. They've had a disastrous effect on one of America's formerly most beautiful cities. And he was like, well, something that usually would be relegated to this geographic location now has a voice and an audience. Bad ideas have the ability to be disseminated everywhere, and any contrary opinions to those bad ideas are crushed by the people perpetuating those bad ideas because they know that what Joe Rogan said, they can't stand up to scrutiny, which is a fascinating insight into, I guess, how he actually thinks things work. San Francisco has done terribly with how they've managed their city, and we don't want or can't have the rest of the country looking like San Francisco. And the way that you stop that is you change the culture within the company that is disseminating the information that has perpetuated the terrible outcomes due to policy in San Francisco. That's way more insightful than I guess I thought was going to come out of his mouth. But speaking of bad examples in cities, you see policy ruin areas. Los Angeles is one of those cities. They have a district attorney there that no longer prosecutes crime. I'll pitch it again at the end of the show, but you can go check out Lawless, a brand new documentary from the Daily Caller at dailycaller.com. But we talk about, what have these defund the police policies brought on New York, on Austin, on Los Angeles, on Washington, D.C., where they also wanted to defund the police. And speaking of Washington, D.C., here's what you get when you have bad policy that you can't walk back because it's already in existence. And so then you have bad policy, and what you're doing on top of bad policy is stacking new bad strategy. This is the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, talking about a new program that the city is implementing that is funny on its face until you think about the ramifications of it. Not the ramifications of the policy, but the ramifications of the violent theft nature of the city that has gone so awry that this is the best idea that they could come up with. Rather than reversing course and saying, all right, hold on. This lawless land thing that we had going isn't working. They're saying this. Instead, we are going to give you tools to navigate the lawlessness. I want you to watch this clip and tell me if you think this is an idea that'll work. This is Muriel Bowser, mayor of D.C., saying that we're going to give these things to residents and hopefully it'll make it better. Watch this.
Because the chief had another very good idea, and that is to give out free tracking tags, most commonly known as Apple AirTags or tiles, to residents in some communities where we're seeing the highest amounts of motor vehicle theft. And these tags and tiles will help MPD recover stolen vehicles and hold people accountable. The word will also get out that this is not a community to come in and steal cars because it won't be.
She goes on there, but it wasn't worth putting. So that's the strategy. The strategy, and look, I'm not knocking it too hard because you have to do, I guess, something. But if you're going to put Apple AirTags in cars so that you can track them when they're stolen, you also have to have the resources in terms of police personnel to go retrieve those stolen cars, which I guarantee you is not a safe mission. And if you're going to need the personnel to retrieve those cars, chances are you're not going to want to defund the police, or even, as you'll find out in the Lawless documentary, have the culture of defunding the police, because there's a huge component of the fact that culture is a big component in this that is intangible, unmeasurable by dollar figures, but having a huge effect on cities that have adopted such a crazy idea. But that's going on there. You know, in all of this, I guess in the from the first conversation we had about the socialization of things and the safety component that we're now talking about, I think this one comment summed it up probably the most. Kiki says, in all caps, just have the most ammo. Yeah, stay strapped, be out, be more armed than the people who are trying to perpetrate violence against you. And that is not a call to violence in any way, shape, or form. That is a reminder to prepare yourself at all times in such a chaotic society that no one is attempting to fix in these deep blue areas. I wanted to move to this because I think, am I not going to get to Gavin for a third day? I think we're not. I thought this was fascinating. So we talked a lot yesterday about the refugee camp, and I was using it in air quotes yesterday because I wasn't entirely sure of the situation. Quickly recap, Israel took out a Hamas leader. The Hamas leader happened to be hiding amongst civilians. The people in the media said Israel bombed a refugee camp. in reality, when you think of refugee camp, you kind of think tents on the outskirts of town that refugees are gathering. That is not the case. That is not what this was at all. This is a displaced group of people from, I think, the 70s that have formed their own city within a city in Gaza. Again, densely populated area, not what you would call a quote-unquote refugee camp. What I'm about to show you is a refugee camp, but not the case. But anyways, the entire world lost their mind about it. The narrative shifted entirely towards anti-Israel. There were people on Harvard yesterday badgering a Jewish dude, which just, again, like the inability to understand the historical components to it, the context around the region. I'm not saying I have the perfect solution to how you solve peace in the Middle East, but also the amount of pro-Palestine / Hamas people that exist in this country is terrifying. But anyways, all that being said, Israel got hit really hard by the media rhetorically for taking out a refugee camp, which of course is not true, but the whole idea of refugee camp came up a lot. Now, interesting, not sure when this was filmed necessarily, but I guarantee you didn't hear about it. I'm going to play you a video clip, and I'll read the captions as they're going through, especially if you're just listening to this on the podcast. This is an actual refugee camp of Afghan refugees who sought refuge in Pakistan. Reportedly, there's about 1.7 million people that have been displaced from those refugee camps in Pakistan and been forced or pushed back into Afghanistan. And their homes in this refugee camp, as you'll see in this video, have been bulldozed and completely eliminated. Now, the only reason I bring this up is because the whole idea of refugees are the biggest and best priority of the world and of caring countries. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the case, and nobody seems to care unless there's media eyeballs attached to it in the case of Israel-Hamas. And in that case, they're just flat out lying about the idea of refugee camps. But without continuing to talk, this is a clip from the BBC in which Pakistan is pushing people out of actual refugee camps, and nobody in the mainstream media apparently cares. Watch this. Guy says, we've been here for 12 years and we did not have any notice. They just arrived and ordered us to evacuate, but where should we go? They're going to go back to Afghanistan. He says it's snowing. There's nothing for us there. We have nothing. Islamabad, Pakistan, that's where this is happening. 10,000 refugees rushed to the border areas. We've been living in Karachi for the last 30 years, and now it's more difficult and face many more challenges. These are, again, Afghan refugees. We've left all our belongings behind except for our families and children. It's extremely difficult. We demand the government to let us return to our homeland with honor. And this video goes on, but again, not being in English, I decided not to play the entirety of it. But the point I'm trying to make here, and I think the point that several people, I think Ben Shapiro also shared this, and look, I get it. He has a side pretty hardcore on this, but also I have a side. So I guess this argument made sense to me. Apparently, when refugees are banished from certain parts of the world or not taken in by the Americans, it's just the worst. So refugees are banished from parts of the world that nobody pays attention to. Nobody cares. But when it happens in Israeli context or in an American context, it's just the worst thing in the world. Absolutely. How could you possibly not have any compassion for refugees? Since the Biden administration has been in office, and not to belabor this border point, 6 million people have crossed into this country, and those are the ones that have been counted, not including all of the gotaways, and also not including all of the gotaways that are on the FBI watch list, have gotten into this country. And America, if they were to deport all of the people that should be deported back to their own countries because their refugee asylum case is not legit, and we have a backlog in the courts and all that sort of stuff, if we were to actually deport all the people who shouldn't be here, we would be called just so evil. When in reality, most countries around the world that have to deal with this sort of stuff don't deal with it in the way that we do, and they have a much more successful process. Europe is seeing the decline of their own, again, Western cultures and ideas being eroded with the mass amount of immigration. I don't know if it's technically illegal over there. Like, I don't know the laws of Europe. I know a lot of people have gotten into various countries, and a lot of the conservatives in those countries are not cool with it. But I also don't know if their leadership just let them in. So that being said, apparently we've got selective compassion when it comes to refugees and actual refugees. If a Hamas leader hides behind civilians, you say, how could you kill all of those refugees? How could you do such a terrible thing to the refugees? But if Pakistan says, hey, 1.7 million of you, or 10,000 in this particular case, need to go, everyone's like, nah, I don't care. I think all I'm asking is be consistent, but I guess consistency and logic and rationale is a difficult lift for a lot of our friends who are guided blindly by emotion. What are you going to do? But yeah, I don't know. Western ideas, the West as a whole, I think is worth fighting for, and I think you should think is worth fighting for. But at the same time, we also have to have a much more cohesive understanding of how important it actually is. Because when you lose Western ideals, you get just a lawless society. Which brings me to this, promoting this again on the show. I'll be talking with Dan Ball today on OAN about this. The brand new documentary from Daily Caller, Lawless, is available now on the Daily Caller platform. Go to dailycaller.com. I think /documentaries, but it's on the website. You can find it. You just click the button, you go to documentaries, you can watch Lawless. I think you have to be a Daily Caller Patriot to actually access it, but there's a massive deal going on right now, so it might cost you like $1. Like, it's really not. You should do it. Everybody should be a Daily Caller Patriot regardless, but specifically to watch this film, because originally I think this was supposed to be like a 20 to 30 minute thing, where we just kind of analyze what happened in the whole defund the police movement. Ended up turning into an hour-long documentary that is just chock full of information that I didn't know going into it. And I guess we kind of come to a conclusion that I think is a little bit more nuanced than this whole just monetary defunding of the police. But anyways, I'm going to play the trailer for this documentary. Again, Lawless is available at dailycaller.com. Check out the trailer, and we'll talk after that.
Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police.
Completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
When you get out to that fringe, they go, well, we have a reform idea for you. What if we just had no police at all?
The troubling rise in gun violence and homicide across the country.
Oh my goodness.
This is the worst I've ever seen it.
For me, this is Gotham. Everyone has a pipe, everyone has a knife, everyone has a gun.
If we get to a situation where you have a serious bank robbery in North Austin and something happening at ACL at the same time, we will not have enough police officers to respond to both incidents.
You can steal up to $1,000 of merchandise and walk out and not even be prosecuted.
Hell no, ain't nobody doing no time.
The signal that it sends by having a DA saying, look, we're done enforcing that law, that is not the signal you want going out there.
Our criminal justice system is insane.
Watching that trailer gets me both fired up and depressed at the same time. I don't know how to handle it. But anyways, had a fantastic time working on that. Bo, the director and writer of that thing, was just so exceeded the expectation that I had. Not that I had low expectations, but he made this thing rock. But yeah, that'll do it for today. We will appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, and then I think I had the Gavin Newsom stuff prepared on Tuesday. We just haven't gotten to it because, life happens. The world continues to go around, and Gavin hasn't yet announced that he's running for president. So maybe we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Let's see. Kiki said this. Jobob, take your show on the road with Ben Burkham. I know Ben. Great guy. I don't know Oscar Blue in South America, but I think Ben speaks Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. If that were the case, I might be more inclined. And then Mike, coming at the very end, thanks for a Kamala-free show. You know what? You're welcome. If you've noticed, we haven't really talked about Biden or Kamala all that much. One, because I just feel like it's just... How many dumb things can you highlight of two dunderheads who happen to be at the head of the state? I don't know. It gets a little tiresome talking about Kamala and Joe Biden, but at the same time, they keep saying dumb things. So I guess the last couple days, maybe we should give Joe Biden credit. I've liked what he's had to say in response to the Hamas attacks in Israel and combating his own crazy 10% of his party. So maybe that's our little spiel about Joe Biden. But I think I've also said that the last couple of days. So, wow, there's even more comments coming in the very end. That'll do it for us today. See you tomorrow. Appreciate you sticking around. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Thursday, not tomorrow, not today. Thursday next week, I will be at UCLA with Charlie Kirk. On November 13th, I will be in Amarillo, Texas. Those are both political speeches. And the comedy show tour rolls on November 17th in Twin Falls, Idaho, and November 18th in Black Falls, Idaho. You can get tickets or find out any information by shooting me a message on any of the social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB. You'll find me pretty much anywhere. That's that. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.